I'm not worried about the future success of the team. I mean, especially with Dennis Felix and now obviously Gabe that's playing at a really, really high level. I think there'll be lots of Davis Cup success.
Hey, tennis fans, I'm Ben Lewis.
And I'm Mike McIntyre.
And you're listening to Matchpoint Canada.
This week on Matchpoint Canada, we're super pumped to welcome back one of our regular guests over the years, someone who's played his heart out for his country time and time again, and recently announced that he's played his final Davis Cup tie for Canada. Vasek Pospisil, thank you so much for joining us once again and taking the time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's great to have you on again, and obviously the big news with you of late was watching you play your final Davis Cup tie and match in Montreal. Maybe just take us through the emotions of saying goodbye to an event that's meant obviously so much to you over the years, and an event I think you called the most important in your career.
Yeah, it definitely was, and it was an emotional week for sure. I was very bittersweet. I had I flew my parents over. Nobody really knew that I was. I think I told Frank that the day of the match, I didn't want to distract anybody and wanted the team to be completely, focused on the task at hand. But yeah, it was really tough. I mean, there were times there where I was trying to really hold back the emotions and did well to do that. It meant Davis Cup has meant so much to me and brought so much to my life, and so yeah, it was very sad to say goodbye, but obviously I have the reasons to do so, and I felt like it was the right time.
Let's talk about the reasons a little bit. And I know you've been pretty honest with Ben and I over the last few years about the injury struggles and challenges that you've had to face. And it's been difficult to have to watch you go through those. I can only imagine from your side what it's been like, the grind the last few seasons. Is it basically the health reasons that are deciding for you that this will be it? Or can you elaborate a bit more about why now's the time to step away?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. It's a combination of maybe 4 or 5. I'll give you the main ones. Obviously I'm not retiring yet, but I wouldn't be leaving the Davis Cup team if my retirement wasn't around the corner. So I do plan on retiring definitely this year. And yeah, the reasons are, I mean, my body is really breaking down. That's one thing the last 2 years, which took a toll on me, obviously physically, because, and mentally as well, just coming back, from, I think it was 3 elbow tears over the course of 2 years, and not really being even able to get back to the high level, never really being at 100%, even when I was, healthy, or when the elbow was feeling better, I was always playing with pain, and it was, so that was tough, obviously, and then realizing, you're getting older. I'm 34, 35 this summer. And, as a result of the injuries, my rankings completely plummeted. And I know that it would take me at least 6 months, between 6 and 12 months to get back to the high level. I don't doubt that I would be able to. I just, I think if I had time to put in work in the gym, that's probably the most important thing. It's the physical aspect. But even so, it's like, okay, it's been 6 to 12 months to maybe get back if I don't get injured again. And at that point, I'll be almost, 36. How much really would there be left in the tank at that point? And so I just felt that, also, sad to say, the passion for the sport has kind of dwindled a little bit as well, which I think it probably goes hand in hand with everything, including the injuries, right? So, and also just, personal life, things I want to do outside of tennis. Not going to be young forever, and there's the opportunity cost of staying on tour, and so there are a bunch of reasons, so I felt like it was the right time.
Thank you guys so much for watching us at Matchpoint Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.
Well, you're definitely one of those people. We're not concerned about what you'll do in retirement, because you've always seemed like the busiest friggin' guy on the tour over the last few years. So you're still probably going to be busier than most people in retirement. it really makes me wonder as I'm listening to you list all the sort of obstacles that tennis players face as they get a little bit older. Makes me wonder and appreciate how Danny Nestor was able to play until such a late stage in his career, into his mid, if not late 40s. You sort of followed in his footsteps as that doubles anchor on the Davis Cup team. It was such a smooth, seamless transition between the two of you and former partners as well, which was really nice to see. Who do you sort of envision sort of taking your spot as that doubles guy that Canada can count on moving forward? Or do you think it'll be maybe by committee moving, past this point?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have a really great team, a lot of young that can play, both singles and doubles at a high level. I'm not sure if there'll be one player that's necessarily just a doubles player, even though that was me the last 2 years or 3 years. It's hard to say. I mean, again, I think both Dennis and Felix can play unbelievable doubles, very high level, just by being amazing tennis players, singles players. Cleve Harper and oh my God, Liam I just played him. Sorry,
a lot of new names, eh?
Yeah, Cleve and Liam, they've just won a couple big challengers and they're almost both in the top 100. So, those could be guys that will be playing for years to come. We'll see. But one thing's for sure is I'm not worried about the future success of the team. I mean, especially with Dennis, Felix, and now obviously Gabe that's playing at a really, really high level. I think there'll be lots of Davis Cup success with or without me. So I think there's definitely nothing to worry about. And I'm glad that I'm leaving at a time where I'm not going to be holding the team back as the old guy that's moving slowly on the court.
Everyone obviously references, I think, that historic 2022 title, but I have to say one of the runs I always think of from you was helping lead that team to the finals in 2019 in Madrid, and not just on the doubles side, but you had just an incredible stretch of tennis in singles. That run, getting wins over Fanini, Opelka, John Millman. How can you reflect back on maybe the tennis you were playing that week? Do you remember just feeling the ball so incredibly well? And how important was maybe that week of tennis for the team to believe that you guys could eventually win the title?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, it was definitely one of the most memorable weeks of my career, whether it was Davis Cup or in individual events. Yeah, I mean, I was definitely on fire. Both Dennis and I just were playing lights out. I was coming back from my back injury and was having a really good end of the season. Had a really good 12-month period there on the singles court. So I was, super confident, and it was the first time we obviously made the finals. So it was such a fun week. I mean, we had a blast. Felix was there with us. He obviously played the last day, but he wasn't able to play any of the previous ties because of his injury. He was coming back from injury, and I think making the finals there it was really important for us, because I think that you're kind of going into the 2022 or any year after that, we really wouldn't settle for anything other than the title, so it's like, well, we've already made the final, so making the final again wouldn't really be that incredible, right? So for us, it really was setting our sights on the championship, which I think is important. Often go through these stages and where you kind of gain confidence based on results. The first time you win your first ATP match, you're like, oh my gosh, right? And then first time you make a quarterfinals or a Masters event, but then you're always kind of looking forward and you're looking ahead to the next thing, and it kind of pulls you to that next accomplishment. I think it definitely had some kind of a role there for sure, where when we were going into that 2022 run, especially as we got momentum, for us, it was like, we want to win this thing. Like, it wasn't like, oh, let's, be great to get semifinals. It was just like, no, like, we want to win this. And I think that just changes your overall approach and how you conserve your energy, and it's very important to have set your sights high. So I think that was definitely a good stepping stone to the 2022 title.
Yeah, and you said in Montreal, that 2022 title, there was nothing you'd wanted to win more than anything else as you guys were, I guess, closing in on that victory. When you look back on maybe that week, is there any particular match or moment that sort of stands out en route to that title? Because you guys did, it wasn't straightforward. You obviously battled a lot of adversity, and you had some huge, crucial doubles ties along the road as well.
Yeah, that year was, I mean, not straightforward at all. Even if you go back to the group stage when Felix and I were playing singles and doubles, prior to that final eight, I mean, we were a couple of points away from elimination a couple times there against Korea. We were down a set in the deciding doubles. Against Spain, they served for the match in the deciding doubles, and yeah, like it just everything seemed to align that year for us, no question about it. Then even once we made making the final eight, I mean, also like Felix was on an unbelievable run. He just won like 3 titles or something. He was like the hottest player on tour for a couple of months leading into that. So him being super confident. I was confident as well at that time, even though I went into the final eight just playing doubles. I came off some big wins and won a challenger event and was getting on a bit of a hot streak. Dennis as well came up huge, clutch as he so often does. So everything kind of has to align if you want to win Davis Cup, where you can't really have like a weak link on the team, even so much as just a guy that's maybe just a little bit low on confidence, or just like everything had to align so perfectly that year, and it did, and that's kind of what it takes to win such a big event.
It's a special group for sure, and so much depth on that squad in particular, and that's something that Canada's grown over the years, both on the men's and women's side, is just having that depth that if you're missing even one of the guys, it's okay because there's someone else to stand up and do it. You've played with so many different teammates over your years representing Canada in Davis Cup. I wonder if you could pick a couple who stand out to you as just like fantastic teammates or buddies or guys that you really enjoyed going through the ups and downs over the course of your international career with.
Yeah, well, it's hard to pick one because we have such a great group of guys. Honestly, like I think that's another, just to my previous point, what it takes for a team to win Davis Cup, and like team chemistry is another thing, right? I mean, I can't remember the last time we've had any tension amongst players or arguments, or which is so often the case. I mean, you hear it even now. I mean, it's so foreign to us. We forgot that that's even a thing. When we hear about the other teams and players they have beef with another player, or with a captain, or with the federation, or we haven't had any of that for a long time. And I think it's because everyone on the team, I mean, they're just really good people. They're very good teammates. You don't ever sense, which has not always been the case. Like even on some previous Davis Cup teams, years ago, there would be sometimes you could feel that someone didn't want you to do well because of just like weird stuff, and that just is not the case for Team Canada right now. And I think it's because we have such a good group of guys. But to answer your question, because you did ask it, I think come
on, we want names, Vasek.
Like obviously. Daniel, I have such a soft spot for Daniel. I mean, because I looked up to him so much when I was, coming up and then being on the team, and he was a huge part of Davis Cup. Obviously, I think it's unfortunate because I think he, would have deserved to be on the team when we won because of what he, how committed he was, and in many ways contributed largely to our success. I mean, we had a guy that we looked up to that already did it, and Milos and I were coming up, and he was a great team player, a lot of fun in the locker room, always cracking jokes, very different from what you see on TV. He's a polar opposite character. Yeah. So he's a lot of fun, and everyone, Frank, amazing captain, both Felix and Dennis, just such great team guys. Everybody. I mean, I could list all the names, but special shout out to Danny.
The camaraderie definitely seemed tight, and I always love watching the two of you. He always kind of struck me as like the team dad. I know he wasn't that old, but that sort of father figure on the squad. And the rapport between you two was never more evident for me than at the roast when he retired. I think it was at Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto or something like that. And you just had some zingers, and he took them so well, and you could just tell there was that like just a natural friendship and respect between you guys.
Yeah, for sure. And we're friends to this day. I mean, of course, we'll always be friends. But we're, I would consider him still a very, very close friend. Like, we hang out as much as we can. When I'm in Toronto, I always see Daniel, and so I mean, he'll be a friend for life, and as will, many of these guys. So Daniel's definitely a good one.
What one thing you guys seem to have in common was your prioritizing Davis Cup always ahead of other things, individual accolades or your schedule or chasing ranking points or whatnot. Can you explain to our audience a little bit about why you always seem to put Davis Cup first in your career?
Yeah, but I mean, a bunch of reasons. I mean, I think one, I don't think there's any bigger honor than playing for your country. I think it's I mean, that should be enough as it is, to be honest, but I think, but it's also so fun. It's such a fun week being in team atmosphere, playing and the fans back home in Canada, when it means so much to them when the team wins. And it's a combination of so many different things that make it also just really special, outside of the fact that, representing your country is number one. And that's always been something that I've wanted to do. And I've always, even from a young age, I was just always wanting to play for Canada. And it was just something that was just ingrained in me. So I've never, and yeah, it definitely, is a sacrifice for your personal career rankings. And which is why, a lot of times players won't play certain weeks, or there's no question about that. But for me, I mean, it was never even it was never a question. It was always like, okay, here's the schedule, and these are the Davis Cup weeks, so I have to make my schedule around that. That's kind of how I always approached it. So I never really even second guessed, like, oh, should I play this week? Should I go play Davis Cup? It was never that. It was like, okay, how do I adapt everything else around my schedule to be ready for Davis Cup? So, why that is, I mean, yeah, Daniel was the same way, and a lot of the guys are the same way or similar way. So, yeah, I don't know. That's the best I got for you to answer that.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, you obviously implied at some point you're going to hang up the racket this year for your personal career as well. And I just wonder, what do you have maybe in stock in 2025? I obviously had the thought, obviously the physical issues make singles tough, but clearly you can still compete at a high level in doubles. Have you considered, trying to compete in various doubles events through the year? Do you want to see if you can return to Grand Slams in that aspect? Yeah, maybe just some insights on what you hope to play for this season.
Yeah, no, I put some thought into the doubles, idea. I've had a lot of people in my ear telling me I should, start focusing on doubles, which I've never done in my career. I don't, and I do feel like if I did that, then I could have a great doubles career or play for another 4 or 5 years. It's not as taxing physically, of course. And, but, given I just, again, back to the previous points I made, I just feel like there's so much more I want to do in my life. And I don't know if I can travel around the world 30 weeks a year for another 3-4 years playing doubles. I just don't think it's just something that I just don't want to do. So with that, I mean, my goal for this year is try to get into as many singles tournaments as I can, and stay in shape, and then get ready for my retirement. But I'm trying to get into tournaments and build my ranking and see how it goes. Right, I mean, because I do feel like I can still play at a high level in singles if I'm in shape. So the priority now is getting in shape and giving it one more push, and then seeing how that goes. But doubles won't be a part of that, unfortunately.
You referenced the elbow tears. One big injury I think back to you in your career is dealing with the back and going through surgery, I believe in 2018. And I have to wonder if there were doubts in your mind after going through something like that you could ever return to the court with success. And you look at your seasons in singles in 2019, 2020. You were comeback player of the year in 2020. You had some big time results at slam level, and 2019 you played incredibly well as well. Did you have those doubts in 2018 that you could sort of make a return in singles? And where do those two seasons maybe rank for you if you sort of look back on what you accomplished in singles?
I definitely had some doubts. They were probably pretty minor because I can't really even remember having doubts. So I feel like I was probably still young enough and eager enough, motivated to come back that I handled that adversity and that part of my life pretty well. I think I had a really good mindset, and I think that's one of the reasons why I bounced back so quickly too. And it was great couple of years. I mean, Frank was coaching me at that time coming back, and I remember I beat like 12 of 17 top 20 guys that I played in that comeback year. And, unfortunately, the ranking didn't quite reflect that because they introduced a 2-year ranking system briefly. And so I think I got up to like 61, but in reality, my 12-month ranking was like 28. So actually, it's close to my career high. So It was definitely, that 2019, 2020 season, or for a year and a half there, 2 years, was some of the best tennis that I played in my career for sure. Comparable to, the 2013, 14 into 15. So yeah, it was definitely really good time. I think the COVID, after COVID kind of slowed, I started dating girlfriend and then, Frank, unfortunately for me, but he wanted to spend more time at home, and kind of got sidetracked a little bit, I think, which definitely affected my momentum at that stage.
Hey, I just got to say, as we near the completion of our interview, you got to stop mentioning how old you're getting, because when you say that, those of us who are in our 40s, okay, or our audience who are older are going to really start feeling their age, I guess. So you got lots of good years.
In the context of tennis, yes. I'm still young. I know that. In the context of the sport, I'm a dinosaur. I feel like I'm like, that's, although now you got guys that are playing, well, Novak especially, but you got some other players that are playing extraordinarily well into their mid 30s. So, which is, kind of unprecedented. There were one or two in the past that did that, but now there's a handful of them. But yeah, I've decided I'm not gonna be one of those players. I've decided.
Hey, Vasek, I'm wondering if there's a message you can share with those in our audience who've supported you over the years at Davis Cup, waving those giant cardboard cutouts of your head with the anything is possible signs and cheering for you in the squad. Sort of any, words that you want to sort of share with them for their support over the years.
Yeah, just that it meant so much to me. It's so special. Like, even going through the ups and downs, having that base, that core, kind of fans that show up and believe in you, and also just giving you that support when you're on the court. I mean, it's so crucial, especially at like a Davis Cup, Davis Cup competition where you really feed off the crowd. And I've always been one of those players that play with a lot of passion and would play better in front of a bigger crowd, or a crowd that was into the match or cheering me on or egging me on. So I think a lot of my success came in those environments. So I mean, it's a huge thank you to all those people that would come out and cheer for me and definitely made a really big difference. So a big thanks to everybody.
You'll have to go sit amongst them at one of those ties out in BC at some point in retirement, and hold a Felix cardboard cutout up or something, right?
Yeah.
And make sure, I put this out on Instagram the other day, but you have to make sure you get one of those cutouts with your name on it, of course, and your face on it to take home as a souvenir, I think.
That's a good idea. I didn't think of that. Yeah, I'm gonna text Tennis Canada right now, like, just to make sure they hold one of those for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. Vasek, thanks so much for again joining the podcast, and it was great to see the great ceremony they had for you in Montreal, and a fun little touch for those who missed it. You took a nice shot of maple syrup, which was kind of your key fuel, I think, when you returned and were making big singles runs. I don't know, is maple syrup still in the diet today?
It is still in the diet, not as much as it was back then, because I realized I'm like, oh, maybe my blood sugar levels are a little high, but so, but yeah, it is, and it was special. It was very nice of Tennis Canada to do that, because I actually told them last minute, like nobody knew, right? So it was actually the morning of that final match where they put that together. So that was really nice of them, and I'll definitely come back to Davis Cup ties with the team, as much as I can, and support them and bring maple syrup.
Well, we definitely expect to see you around and maintain your presence on the Canadian tennis scene. We're going to save our retirement questions for you and all the plans you have for the future for the next time you come on, because that, I think, will be a whole episode in itself. So hopefully later this year or next year, you promise to make one more return for Matchboy Canada. And
definitely. No, I definitely will. I mean, if I go on a big singles run this year, then I might postpone. So it's not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Good.
We'll
Happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But, on behalf of Ben and I and all of our listeners here in Canada and abroad, just, thanks for everything you've done for the sport. There's no way that Davis Cup championship ever comes home without the work that you put in behind the scenes, both on the court and just being a great teammate to the younger guys on the squad as well. So super impressive stuff, and congrats on a great career for your country.
I really appreciate that. Thanks, guys. And thanks for having me on. I'm always happy to be here. So I'll come on anytime.